All right, welcome to Stampscaping 101. This is a piece of the white matte Mirri Holographic, and I was doing an experiment with dye-based inks stamped over the top of it, and it looked really amazing. But when the inks dried, they looked like this, okay? But before they dried, when they were wet, they looked really kind of deep and saturated, and I'll show you what I mean by that. All right, now that deep saturation looks really cool on here because you get that kind of effect of all that holographic kind of showing through, but it was showing through in the colors of the ink that I made over the top of it. So I did a test and I sprayed some spray fixative, which is an acrylic spray fixative, right over the top of that to see if I can kind of regain that look of the wet dye-based inks over the top of it. But it really didn't. It just kind of frosted over everything. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to see if I can wipe some of this off and kind of, just make something of this. I don't know if I can at this point in time because we have these impressions that are down there. Okay, now here's the thing that I'm already noticing is that my light green is coming off, but why aren't the pink and blue impressions coming off? Maybe I spray sealed these a little bit more. Maybe I hit it around on the perimeter a little bit more. I'm not really quite sure. But let's see what we can do with this. It just seems kind of a shame to just toss this piece out. We have these kind of cool looking effects going on in the background of this, and I think we could still utilize this paper to get some type of, I don't know, kind of an acceptable final result out of this piece here. I'm not sure. Like I said, I've already spray sealed this, and that acrylic's not really going to come off. I was going to see if it would come off a little bit, but I don't know. Let's see if I can kind of buff this out. That's one of the things about these types of cardstocks. You have to use ink that is going to be compatible on it. And I can see that, we can get these impressions on there, to some degree. But it's not really going to adhere very much unless you spray seal it. So I'm able to get some of it off right here, even after spray sealing. Now, if I didn't spray seal it, I could have just wiped this whole thing off and all those inks would have come off. But do you see what this looks like when it's wet? But then it dries really, pretty fast and it regains that kind of frosted look to it, okay? So I don't know if you can see it right there. Like it's already drying right here. Visibly drying at least. I don't know if it's kind of dry all the way through. Surface drying, I should say. Okay. Well, let's go ahead and let's use kind of more of your, traditional inks. I say traditional, but it's more compatible inks that can be used on this. Okay, so we're talking about Brilliance inks, which are a fast-drying water-based pigment ink, or your StazOn type of ink. But what can we do with this at this point in time? We already have kind of all of these, 3 tree impressions that are down here already. And I have a feeling that no matter what I stamp over the top of it, we'll be able to see those to some degree. But maybe we can make something of it. Maybe we can incorporate them into our composition here. And I don't know, just kind of work with it. I have these other types of inks too, the Starlight Silver. Maybe we can put some silver impressions over the top of this, like with these same trees, and that might be kind of interesting. That would be really fast to do. I don't know if I want to do that though. Yeah, because these trees right here are just too kind of, fence post-ish, just all at the same level and height, and kind of no visual, not very much visual interest with it. All right, so let's try this right here. Let's go with the Brilliance ink background, and let's see if we can get some clouds going over in here, and maybe I can kind of obscure some of these trees. I might add in some more trees, but I'm not sure. So let's just see how this goes. All right, now my paper is really curling because of all that moisture that I just applied on there. I call this scraps to scenes, basically, utilizing, you know, a piece of paper that would otherwise be a scrap and just kind of, you know, just making the most of it. I do this with other things too. I have some other pieces here that I've been keeping. You know, this is just a demonstration on how to use the water pattern, but, you know, it's kind of fun and a little bit of a challenge to see what we can make out of these pieces. All right, so let's take that. Okay, so I'm going to do this in black. I'm just going to go, you know, dark on these impressions here just to obscure that background. I mean, we can do things like, you know, some white, you know, whiting out down here for some additional clouds. Maybe I should do that here. As I say that, I was thinking, let's just kind of get on with it. But this is a pretty heavy application of that pink right here. Let me show it to you, you know, without all that glare on there. Yeah, a little bit. You can see a little bit. So let's go in here. Let's add a little bit of a slathering. I don't think that pink is going to come off because I think as much, you know, that pink is going to, you know, if it was going to come off, it would have come off when I was rubbing this down with the with a wet paper towel. All right, so this is obscuring it a little bit. Maybe my white is kind of, I don't know, it's a little bit dry maybe. Or I just can't tell. I can't tell, you know, whether it's being applied or not. It's really hard to tell, huh? Okay, I can see it now. I can't really tell when I'm putting it over the trees, but I can tell just on the directly on the piece of paper. All right, so that is not blocking it off too much. You got to keep in mind this Brilliance ink. You know, it's applying on here, but it's not applying very thickly because this paper is non-porous. So, you know, when I'm dabbing this on here, I might be kind of removing ink, you know, as much as I'm applying it at times, especially when it starts to get built up a little bit. So just keep that in mind. It's not like you know, working with an absorbent, you know, piece of like matte cardstock or semi-gloss cardstock. Even glossy cardstock is going to be more absorbent than your metallic foil type of surface. Okay, let's go with the cloud cumulus, kind of the all-purpose cloud, you know, that can kind of obscure a lot of things out there, just in terms of a general tone, okay? It's not solid or anything. We're going to be able to see through it, but it puts another layer of something over the top of something else, so it pushes, you know, whatever exists in there into the background, okay? All right, so I'm wiping off. I'm going with a very dark ink here, and I don't want this to be looking like a rectangle in the sky, okay, which it is, but we don't want to get those edges. So, and this is a very thick style of ink in the pigment ink, so I'm wiping off the perimeter like this, okay? Wipe it off pretty good too before you stamp it out, and you won't have this hard edge line, which is the perimeter of this. It'll fade out, okay? Which needs to be there in the design, you know, for kind of this type of, you know, perimeter incorporation and fade out, all right? But you just wipe it off so it stamps out lighter, okay? And I'm wiping it off with a dry paper towel. And each impression, I'm kind of changing the angle of the cloud a little bit. See, goes like this, goes like this. You can see that pretty hard edge because I didn't wipe off the bottom part. I don't know, I wasn't thinking about stamping it up that high. Which I did, but I'll show you, I mean, see, I'm doing this right here, and I just put another impression down there, but when you're doing an impression that's just going to end in kind of this space up here, then wipe it off. Open space, that is, okay. And that's where it's going over that pink there. It's a little bit murky of an impression with that pink back there, but I don't know. I'll try to add something over the top of it to push it back yet another layer into the distance, okay? Remember, we're just kind of making do here and just seeing if we can't utilize this, piece of cool looking holographic. I don't want to toss it out, it's like we might as well make something out of it. Now I will need to spray seal this again, okay? I say it again, I mean, I didn't spray this scene, but I sprayed, that test scene before. Okay, I'm going to go for a second impression. I stamped that up. Well, here, actually. Wipe it off, and I'll blot it off like that, so it's evenly kind of impressed, with that first one. And then I get kind of a lighter impression of the cloud back there, like this. So it's kind of cool. You don't really see that, that pink pine tree too much right there, but yeah, it's a little bit. And see down here, you don't see this kind of patterning down here because I blocked it out with the white underneath there. So you don't see too much of that pattern going into these areas right here. I mean, we could have left it as is, but I felt that the tree impressions might be a little bit too strong, so we blocked it out. All right, let's go with the same trees again in here, okay? And I'll just add in some, foreground in here. Let's go ahead and, I can see one tree in there still. You see right there? But you really don't, it's not too apparent in there. It's better than, tossing it out, I think. Scraps to scenes. Sometimes they're the, I don't know if they're the funnest, but they can be a lot of fun to do. It's kind of challenging to make something out of something that was unintentional and or undesirable, either from scratch, because doing this type of thing from scratch, like when you're starting off with something that, you're having to make do, okay? Something that is not an ideal beginning to an entire scene. When you're doing something like that, it's good experience for the times when you run into kind of, I don't know, some decision making during the process of working on another card, where you might run into, some kind of challenges to get through. I feel that doing this type of exercise and just starting off with something that really is kind of challenging as a kind of a visual hurdle, it helps us in, the smaller things that can, potentially pop up in the making of a scene or card or whatever you're doing. It's like a metaphor, too, for life, right? You just kind of make the best of, something, or, you just helps us to make decisions on kind of what we might want to do, It's not necessarily the right or wrong decision if you choose one or the other. It's just something comes out a little bit different, based on the choices we make. All right, going with a couple impressions with leafless pine here. Just for a little bit of a different shape. I felt it was getting a little bit heavy in here with too much of this, okay? If I went with a third one, so let's go with, additional depth with this. But, it shows more of what's going on in the background. I'll do another one, but I'll do it much lower. Just so it doesn't look so repetitive. I have that. That holographic really makes this piece, doesn't it? With those colors up there. It's kind of cool. All right, now I have kind of this other area down here. Let's go with the, I think that's enough leafless pines. We don't want to make it look like, like a diseased forest or something like that with too much dead wood there in our tree line. So again, I'm stamping this much lower than this other one right here. I almost touched it. Be careful, because all this right here is still a little bit moist, okay? So you can either just allow this to dry, air dry, or you can heat set it a little bit if you want to. Okay, let's see. Maybe some birds up there. Let me go find my other bird stamp. All right, I have my gulls here. When you go to a really small type of stamp without a lot of surface area, don't squash it down, otherwise you're going to get a real smeared impression. So remember to change your impression pressure. Adequate pressure for the size, but don't squash it down, these little stamps. Then we have our little birds in the sky like that. So I think that's, I don't know. I mean, I do a lot of these scenes with these trees in here, and, not all the time with the clouds, but, they can make for a kind of an easy solution because they're very bold and they can cover up things. So whatever you have going on in the background, they're bold enough to stand up to that background, but then you can have these more delicate, kind of gestural pieces in here with the leafless things, so that you have, another element that's kind of adding depth in your scene without covering it up. So one thing's covering up, and the other thing is kind of adding a little complementary image that belongs with the scene. But you can see all those different clouds in there like that, with the colors kind of showing through. And I feel that the spruce tree large in there, in those other colors, are harmonizing enough with the background that it doesn't look kind of weird. But that being said, why don't we add in a few little extra touches in here. I don't know what this. We'll add some little highlights on our clouds, I guess, and maybe on some of these branches of our trees, maybe. Kind of be cool to add little stars, but then I was thinking, I don't think this is a star. This looks like a daytime type of scene, so I won't add stars, like right in this area in here. It would kind of push everything back another step, but let's not do that. Okay, on this tree, I'll put a few little highlights. It does get a little bit murky in here with all that dark cloud, with the dark image all over the front of it, so I'll just kind of try to bring out some of these objects from the background a little bit. Just with some highlights. You put a few highlights on certain things, and it kind of lifts it out from the background. And then I'm putting some onto my clouds, onto the billows that are facing the light. So I think this, I don't know, made a little scene out of a piece that would otherwise get, kind of an experimental piece that, we could have tossed in the trash or something like this. But I think this is a pretty decent looking scene now. It's looking even better now, I think, with the little highlights on here. Everything looks a little bit more dimensional, and get these little reflective elements in here with some contrasting, textures, white textures within the forms, and you have a nice little scene like that. All right, can you see those little textural elements? Let me see if I can get it. See those little white dots in there? And then they're right over here too. And you really see it like that. Where I've added all these little dots on the tops of the clouds. That's a kind of a sloppy application of it, but this is how, how you're really seeing it, with, normal lighting like that. So anyway, so again, you got to be careful. This is, again, the Brilliance ink, okay, which can dry on this paper. We're going to spray seal this with, I'm not sure, I might use a gloss coating on here. I use the spray fixative, which is a matte, kind of thin coat. I might hit it with a little bit more of a thicker coat, which will bring out these colors a little bit more. You can kind of tell they're kind of matte and flat right now. But I think if I kind of, hit it with a little bit more of a gloss, first of all, this impression of this tree in the background, I think will fade into the background, and then we'll get more of the brighter tones in here from just the base holographic. Something that I normally wouldn't do because I want to retain kind of more of the characteristic of the matte white Mirri holographic appearance, okay, that has these kind of cool patterns in it. But in this case, where I'm just kind of trying to obscure the things that kind of I had already done in there as an experiment, and it didn't work, I just want to kind of eradicate that as much as possible. So I think the gloss might be the thing to go with here. But we'll let this dry, and we'll see how it goes. Okay, so anyway, scraps scenes, work with your pieces, and even if it's a point beyond kind of repair. Went out of focus here. Okay, we're back. Yeah, I think that worked out pretty decent. And again, we kind of, save the paper there. I'd really hate to, kind of toss out any of this really cool looking holographic right here. So fun with holographics. Just use the right types of inks on them, and they can be, some of the most user-friendly in terms of what you're able to just kind of wipe off the surface if you don't like it. Okay, thanks for watching, and see those pieces see your pieces to completion. Sometimes you might not know where the completion is. Let me get this kind of in a good angle here so you can see those different colors. But, I don't know, sometimes you might have to sit on it for, a day or two. Sometimes people bring back, pieces that they started, years ago at times, and I'll see that they've, kind of finished them off in some kind of cool way, or just in a very basic way, but the pieces look great. All right, thanks so much for watching again.